I was drawn toward this film as it was amongst the filmography of great Italian director Ermanno Olmi, and realized that it was part of a wider series of television films adapting stories from the Bible. An Abraham telefilm, directed by Joseph Sargent, preceded this picture, and then to adapt Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, and Noah's Ark, the rest of Genesis, Ermanno Olmi was seemingly given complete creative control. I can absolutely imagine this would be the kind of film Olmi would make if he himself had decided to adapt the book of Genesis. Maybe if he could, he would have included Abraham more so. It was told mostly via narration. An old shepherd relates the story of the world to his grandson. We receive narration over many vivid images, somewhat abstract, depicting the Garden of Eden story, Cain and Abel's consequential scuffle, and, though presented with far more concrete visual representation, the Noah's Ark legend. It seems most of these films are made via an Italian production house known as 5 Mile River Films. Presumably this is how Olmi was involved with directing one. I really admired this picture's photography. Olmi shot it himself. Hopefully my screen caps have adequately demonstrated its cinematographic splendor. At 90 minutes in length, it hardly outstays its welcome either. The film is cast with Bedouin performers. It tries to opt for a certain historical realism when realizing these iconic stories. If they were true, if one was to accept these tales as the true history of the world, how might it have looked when it occurred? We hear about these stories in the Bible, but how did it actually look? Imagine just being there. The idea that these events are the literal history of this earth and our species can receive great scientific ridicule now. Bible literalism seems in as a vestige of uncritical fanaticism. Although remember, in regard to taking it rather seriously as a record of human history, many do or did. I did at one time. It's the impression I received at one stage in my life, although how I balanced that with a love of dinosaurs and prehistorical animals is anyone's guess. No one grows up assuming anyone is lying, or at least that they could be potentially mistaken or misguided, even at a time wherein religion can be perceived as privately fulfilling, even an admirable trait denoting modesty and humility. It could offer individuals so much incentive and solace that they were willing to commit to horrible acts, and sometimes still are, in order to hang on to the impression that their beliefs hold some sacred validity. Nevertheless, I feel a certain affinity with a cultural Catholicism still. It brings me a certain pleasure that I can say I received the sacraments of initiation, which is a unique experience, not privy to just any. It is a bizarre experience to receive at such a confused age. It is just fascinating to me that I found myself, by circumstance more than anything else, inducted into the oldest continuing organization in the world. Catholicism and that church, like all other major religions, except for possibly Jainism, are responsible for certain tremendous evils. I once heard it stated in this Rick Roderick lecture, although he mightn't have coined the phrase, the most dangerous principles and philosophies to any one group or society is their own, because they might have to be held accountable to them one day. But anyway, that's possibly baseless and likely editorializing, and editorializing is considered a barrier to truly good writing by some great writers. If the stories told within the Bible's book of Genesis are to be adapted, this is as good a way as any. They are presented as though they are vague memories, not romanticized expressionistic triumphs or cinematic extravagance. And then the piece on Noah in particular, with its insertions of then contemporary news footage of modern warfare, becomes a really interesting piece wherein the character and archetype of Noah is explored. A more emotionally inclined sequence wherein, though no shots of great rushing apocalyptic waters are shown, a man is presented contemplating within his ark, convincingly grappling with the messages which God had sent to him of his purpose. It's distinct from, say, the 1928 Michael Curtiz silent film. Here, the film becomes more of a straight adaptation, as I implied earlier, although it still relies on the voiceover narration, with more of a cheerful mood than the prior segments, by the close of the narrative anyway. One wonders whether Olmi believed in the vitality of the Noah's Ark story, or if the film's producers desired something more coherent or accessible than what the other sequences were, and so pushed Olmi to direct Noah's Ark as he did. I think I welcome this, however it occurred, though I don't celebrate any consternation which Olmi may or may not have endured. I think he beautifully illustrates and makes fairly believable the mission of Noah, certainly from a pathological, existential point of view, if nothing else. The Noah's Ark story has been with me for really almost my entire life. I knew of it before I knew of any other story related to Christianity. It had been told to me many times by my father because I really liked animals and zoology at the time, and I still do, though not as fastidiously or obsessively as with films now. An incredible narrative it is, and how welcomed I felt when I realized that this story was considered part of world history when I was first being taught about it during my first year at primary school. I learned about God, Jesus, and the Bible for the very first time. Wow, I knew I'd be learning in school. I didn't think I'd be learning about the very nature of the cosmos itself. That was a weird existentialism I'll never get back. I wouldn't assume. Why didn't anyone tell me about this God thing? My parents hadn't mentioned it, as it were. I wound up appreciating, to a large extent, my Catholic circumstances, but sometimes it was pretty spiritually terrifying. Sorry for all this nonsense. I hope you enjoyed the screen caps. Have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are.